So now is the time that we're going to cross to Craig Young. Craig, I have been a Vodafone customer for over 10 years now, and I don't think I've ever been so mad at them as when they came out and said, we heard the calls from rural customers. What a quote! And will now offer the same unlimited data as our urban users during COVID-19 lockdown, but from midnight to 9 o'clock. Are they so disconnected from their consumer?
Oh, yeah, kia ora, Sarah. Well, it's really interesting. Many of your viewers will remember being on some sort of satellite service several years ago where you had free data overnight as well. It's quite it feels like a backward step. But I'm not sure. I think they're trying their hardest because, quite honestly, they've got some significant problems with that investment that was made under the RBI1, the Rural Broadband Initiative Phase 1, where 3G in the first instance was rolled out to a significant part of New Zealand. And unfortunately, things have just moved on. And so they just can't keep up.
So the infrastructure of wireless and the bouncing off towers versus a fixed line ADSL connection, is that where the sort of pipeline is being restricted?
Well, I think, yeah, you're talking about different things there, and certainly we hope that there's no ADSL left out there, that Chorus has managed to upgrade their copper networks in different places to make it faster. But unfortunately, most of rural New Zealand is being, well, I wouldn't say unfortunate, but most of rural New Zealand will be getting their broadband wirelessly. Now, the thing that I suppose you're talking about being a Vodafone customer for 10 years. There is still this assumption out there that you have to be with one of the big players to get your broadband. Look, quite honestly, there are lots of options in most places, and the government has put money into local providers. And I've just been doing some research this afternoon to catch up, and there's some really decent sized packages out there, data packages. So people like Promo Wireless over in Taranaki, Wiz Wireless in the Wairarapa, the Murinet in the South Island, they've all got 500 gig plans. Now, even if a family uses 30 gigs a day, that's 360 gigs a month. So there are some options out there if you look local. And I really want to support and encourage people to look at their local providers.
Lisa Porteous, who we had earlier in the show in Palliser Ridge, I got her to run a speed test after I interviewed her earlier this afternoon, and she was sitting at 25 meg download on Wiz Wireless. So that's really good, especially for streaming this show.
That's pretty good. You can do most things within about a 25 meg. Most of their plans run out to about 50. But what's happening now, and look, we are in unprecedented waters. I've been posting each day looking at the capacity and the usage on networks, particularly in urban New Zealand, as everybody goes home and works from home. Of course, most people in rural work from home, but in urban areas. And the actual data usage on the network is increased significantly, 30 to 40% during the day. And so we're seeing quite a shift. And obviously, as the kids leave school, now that schools are shut down, we're starting to see that shift in rural New Zealand as well. And so these networks that aren't engineered to deliver or to carry large amounts of data that we suddenly start to throw at them are starting to creak a little. And it's just physics when it comes to wireless. You just can't deliver the speed and the capacity that we want.
Okay, this is a new normal, and potentially there'll be a lot of good things come out of this, of the way that we work, not entirely every day locked at home, but having the ability to maybe work more from home, and also the Internet of Things and farming starting to get more and more connected with devices on farm. How is 5G going in terms of the process of getting there? And is it going to be like fibre where farming's sitting waiting for 10 years before after town gets it, sort of thing?
Well, I think what you've got to get first in significant parts of rural New Zealand is just getting 4G. I mean, I think people who don't have coverage at the moment will see a significant improvement with 4G. So we've got this rollout occurring at the moment where the regional providers, the ones that I talked about earlier, have been rolling out faster wireless broadband, and quite honestly, they're doing a fantastic job. And you ought to be looking in your area if you've got one of those players, because you're supporting local businesses as well, and they can come and help you out in the local. But as the other part of the rollout is the three mobile networks working together as one for this group called the Rural Connectivity Group, the RCG. And they are filling in the spaces where the first round of RBI didn't go. And that's true 4G. Now, that's pretty decent broadband once that's installed, but the problem is they've been a little slow at getting out there. They're starting to crank it up now, but we really want to see over the next year or two a lot more rolled out. The beauty of 4G and the devices and the technology that goes in place with 4G is that an upgrade to 5G is not as significant as from 3 to 4. So I don't think 5G in particular is going to be the answer for farmers. I think, or for rural New Zealand, I think it's getting that jump to 4G is the big jump. Now, just you talked about IoT. IoT doesn't take a lot of bandwidth, so I don't think we have to worry about that. It's what you're doing, things like video streaming, video conferencing, where it's not just the download, it's the upload as well. Those are sorts of things, the new way of working, that's going to put the pressure on the networks.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, someone would think, oh, you're mad going with a live interactive video show every night during a peak time, 7 till 8. People are still very actively watching the show, even though we've just started. And I've got the mindset, Craig, that you can't be, one thing to all people with different levels. So we're going to be multiple things, multiple people. For those who want to listen on podcasts on demand that they download overnight with their Wi-Fi, to a live radio stream of the same show happening right now online as well. So there's all the capacities to be able to consume the same information. But I found this that Steph Holloway has just sent in a message saying that her download speed at the moment is 1.2 meg. And I'm assuming, Steph, that you're watching this right now on that speed. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
I'd like to know how that was coming through.
Yeah, and quite honestly, in today's world, 1.2 meg is not acceptable.
No.
I mean, in the long run, what we really want is for rural and urban New Zealanders to have the same experience. Now, if you can get 50 to 100 megabits per second into your house in rural New Zealand now, that's pretty much the same experience. And there's a few providers out there that are giving you that decent speed. And so you'll be able to do most things like that. But at 1 megabit per second, there's a problem there. You can't work with that really. And it could be all sorts of reasons why that's the case. And if that's the case, you'd have to look at, are you using a local provider or are you using one of the big providers who, the cell phone towers really weren't built to carry that sort of traffic.
Yeah.
We need to invest in that.
And that's the thing too. I mean, I actually worked alongside Vodafone with another hat on 5-6 years ago. And I said to these guys, why don't you sell them the infrastructure? As farmers, they're used to being able to pay large amounts of money to put the power way out to the back woolshed. It's part of farming. So where I live, out towards Little River, they've actually put in their own towers to bounce around the valleys to the houses, but also to turn the irrigators on from their cell phones. So there is a way. I just strongly believe that every farmer or rural person living rurally who has the opportunity just values it differently.
Oh, absolutely. And look, I think I know where you're talking about, because I've got some colleagues up there that are part of that as well. A rural doctor who wants to do some teleconsulting. I think he was part of that deal. I think the beauty about rural New Zealand is that you are innovative and clever, but you've got to have the right people supporting you. And unfortunately, the big players just don't have the capacity and the capability to do different things like that. So you're right. You've got to find people who are local, who can help you get services into where you want to get it. And whether that's using cell phone towers or whether that's using different types of technology. I mean, look, in the long run, what would be best is if we could get fibre to everybody, quite honestly, or at least 5G. But that's not going to happen overnight. But we need to keep investing in improving the networks in rural New Zealand.
My father is actually on wireless fibre.
Wireless fibre?
Yeah, so the tower bounces fibre into the house.
Mm-hmm. It's a bit of I'm not sure how that works, because fibre is actually a hard thing, but
yeah, well, okay.
Maybe it's a marketing term, Sarah.
Well, maybe it was, but anyway, it made things go a lot faster, which he was happy about for the World Cup. Right. That was for sure. But where can people go if they do want to invest in, say, a valley or a community or a farm to improve their own infrastructure and take things into their hands? What type of contractors or who do you call? Because you don't really want to sit on a excuse me,
Yeah.
call centre line with someone who has no idea.
And this is where you're better to go with someone local. So if you go to a website called whisper.nz, WISPA.nz, that lists all the regional players. There's a map on there. You can click on it, find out who's in your area, and usually you can get onto someone who's local pretty quickly, and they'll be able to tell you what they've got and what they can do. They may use a Vodafone service or a Spark service to actually get it to you, but they'll be there in your local community and be able to understand what's going on. So that's where I'd start these days. No, if you've got good cell phone coverage, then you can go to the big players, because obviously there's a tower that's working for you. And as they upgrade those, you'll get better supply. But in the first instance, go local.
I just want to know some top tips, because Vodafone's trying to tell me how to download Netflix. I thought Netflix was streaming. How do you download your Netflix? I mean, what sort of tips can you do to make the most of that period of time, and how?
Yeah. So the download options tend to be on the apps that are on your devices and not on your smart TV. Your smart TV is very good for streaming, but it's rubbish for watching later, because it has no capacity to store. So if you've got a laptop or an iPad, there is download options for most streaming services. TVNZ doesn't have it at the moment, but certainly Netflix, Prime Video. You'll see beside the name of the show, there'll be a little button. There's a little icon that looks like a little down arrow, and that's where you can download those. Quite honestly, though, who's going to get up at midnight to download it? I'm not quite sure. But that's the other side of it. I think this is a temporary measure, and we just got to keep, we keep talking to them about, well, what else can you do to help out? Is there something that the government needs to do to release up some spectrum, for example? So the thing with wireless is it's all about spectrum. It's about how much bandwidth you can get. So maybe there's some stuff that the government can do to help them out. And it's the same for the wireless providers. They're small local companies. I mean, they're all going to start feeling the stress like we are. We're talking about tourism earlier in the show, and some of these, the difficulty is going to be certainly in the second half of the year. So we need to be supporting these guys as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, what is the government? Are they sitting on a treasure chest of extra bandwidth? Or, I mean, how does it work? Are we tapped out of what the pipe's coming in? I just sort of think of it like water.
Well, you got to look at it two ways. So everybody knows that our wireless or mobile comes from a tower. But most of those towers have radio antennas on them, and they're connected by usually these days fiber or some sort of hard network back to the core network. And there may be constraints in there, and that's something that providers, we've been talking to the wholesalers about. Is there something you can do to improve the amount of bandwidth in the back, what's called the backhaul network? So that's from the tower back to the network. Can you do something in there to make it faster and open the pipes a little bit further? It's not as easy as it sounds, but it can be done. The bit that the government controls is the airwaves, and that's from the tower down to you and your device. And there are some things they could do. They could make some spectrum available earlier, but it's not simple or straightforward.
Sorry, did we lose Craig there? No. Oh, sorry, he just went quiet. Sorry, he just went quiet all of a sudden, very quickly. I thought that the spectrum could have buffered.
Yeah. That would be great. Yeah, that's right. Hey, I'm on. Yeah, I think. Unfortunately, it's not a quick fix, and it never has been a quick fix for rural New Zealand, which is why we've been advocating on the behalf of rural for a good 15 years, and we still keep pushing that barrow. But we have seen improvement. So we do have to say that the government has invested significant amounts of our money through levying the other telcos to invest in rural New Zealand. We just cannot take our foot off the accelerator, because it's times like this that prove that broadband and connectivity is now a core utility.
Craig, have you had a yarn to Mr. Shane Jones recently? He's a new fan of farming in the provinces again.
Matthew Jones and I have had a few conversations over the years, and some of that money has gone in, and certainly one of the key projects that we're keen to keep an eye on is the Connect Marae project. We're very interested to see how that goes. Very keen to see it delivered very quickly, but we'd like to see more.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. This is Craig Young, the CEO of TUANZ, the Telecommunication Users Association of New Zealand, sticking up for you, the user, to make sure that you're getting the best possible experience, and something that we are certainly going to need more and more of and protection of as this way of living and farming becomes more of the norm, as well as hopefully how you are enjoying consuming your media and your rural media content.
This is Sarah's Country.